Okay, welcome everyone. This is Isle Palm City Council. Today is Tuesday, May 25th, 2021, and it's approximately 6 p.m. I'd like to call this meeting to order and acknowledge that both the press and the public were duly notified of this meeting in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. Please feel free to join me or not while I say a short prayer to be followed by our saying the Pledge of Allegiance and then roll call. Heavenly Father, I thank you for everything you have blessed us with on this earth. With the beginning of our busy summer season upon us, please look over and protect everyone who lives here, who visits here, and those in public safety who work 24/7, who risk their lives to save others. While hurricane season starts in a few days, we have already seen some disturbances in both the Gulf and the Mid-Atlantic. I ask that you look over not only our island, but all coastal communities around the world. While some have experienced the devastation caused by severe hurricanes and know the damage they can do, many newcomers do not. Help us to teach those to be prepared. As we are finally seeing the light at the end of the tunnel from this unprecedented pandemic, I thank you for all the amazing unsung heroes in the research of medicines and for the dedication of our medical personnel who work tirelessly at their own peril to save others. Look over these last 2 years of the pandemic, and with the rise of the social media, please help us realize that we all have our differences, but these differences are not worth the division that the world and our country are experiencing. Please help and guide us tonight as we tackle some of these challenging and in making the right decisions that will take us forward in future generations. Please, Father, look over and protect our guests, our residents, our city family, and our public safety personnel, plus our military. I rest in peace knowing that you are always looking over me. Amen. Pledge allegiance. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Councilmember Popson,
Here.
Councilmember Streetman,
Here.
Councilmember Moy,
Here.
Councilmember Ward,
Here.
Councilmember Buchanan,
Here.
Councilmember Bell,
Here.
Councilmember Smith, here, Councilmember Pounds,
Here.
Mayor Carroll,
Here.
you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. First up is citizens' comments. Who we have signed up for tonight?
So we have one individual signed up to speak tonight. If that person is here, related to dog.
Okay. Please come up and state your name, and you don't have to state your address. That's up to you. To the platform over here.
Who wants to address council after they did not sign up in advance, but
We have 30 minutes allotted, so we'll allow them their time. Thank you. Microphone.
Oh, we got.
We got you.
We got it.
I asked everybody to limit their comments to 3 minutes.
I think I can handle the 3 minutes. Last year, April 27th, around 12:30 in the afternoon, I was running. I was running north on the Isle of Palms Beach, and I was approximately at 6th Street, and a block and a half more toward the pier was a man and 2 dogs beside of him, a German Shepherd and a Doberman. But he did not have them on the leash, but they were walking beside of him. And somehow the shepherd turned around and saw me. And even though I was far away, he turned around and saw me. He headed toward me along with the Doberman. They grabbed me. The shepherd grabbed my arm, started tearing at my arm. The Doberman jumped on my back and was gnawing at the back of me. The gentleman that had the dogs saw me and he came running toward me, but it took him a while because he was so far away. he could not get the dogs off of him. I wrapped my arms around him. I wrapped my arms around him and my legs went around him. I mean, I was just around him. And he was taking the leash, which he did not have on the dogs, and he was beating the dogs and beating the dogs. And it took a while for the dogs to turn loose. They were trying to get me to the ground. And that was the wrestling match, because I knew if they got me to the ground, I mean, I'm not sure, you know, would I be alive? Afterward, the man grabbed the dogs, put them on the leash, and took off. I was bleeding. He left me. And I made it up to 6th Street, hoping that a car would come down Ocean Boulevard. And of course, at that time, very few cars were going anywhere. So I made it home, called 911. I didn't have my cell phone with me when I run. I didn't think I had a need to. And the minute I called 911, I mean, it wasn't a very short time, a matter of seconds before the EMTs came, and I was bleeding. They got the bleeding stopped. They wanted to take me to the hospital. My daughter just happened to be there. She rushed me, and I had stitches. I had 2 rounds of antibiotics. I had they cleaned me up, got the blood off, and stopped the bleeding. That was the most important thing, because I thought the dog had hit an artery. I did leave pictures with the council, but after that, DHEC called me and said, you have to have a rabies shot. We really recommend that, because you don't know who the owner was. The man walking the dogs was very clean cut. He was very nicely dressed. I did not think, it took me couple days to say, I felt I was okay without the rabies shots. You know, the thing is, I'm the height, and this is the most important, and the weight of an average 12-year-old child. Now, what if I were a child? What if I weren't as athletic as I am, or an elderly person? I did not provoke the dogs. The dogs were way ahead. They just saw me. A dog psychologist told me that dogs do not like children overall. They saw me, I'm little, and I had bright running shorts on and a bright top, and they headed toward me. But I'm here to ask the council to review all the dog bites. I heard from a former policeman that's not with the force anymore that there were 35 to 40 in 2018 or 2019. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But nevertheless, look at this and check the other communities, the beach communities, and see how they handle this. When you did a year ago, Desiree, it looked like we were one of the only communities that had we had the least amount of regulation on unleashed dogs. Many communities, Myrtle Beach, I think, you have to have the dog on the leash at all times. And many times you can't even have them on the beach with certain hours. And I don't understand why we can't do the same because in the regs, it's the city regs, it says the dog must be under voice command. When a dog wants something, very few dogs are trained for voice command. When they want to bite somebody, they're going to bite somebody. And what I would like to see is for the town council to look at the safety. We look at safety. Well, where's the safety for our residents and our guests that go out on the beach and have to deal with unleashed dogs? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Who's next? Yes, sir.
Come up front.
Absolutely, please. We used to ask for names and addresses. We kind of dropped the addresses just for things that are going on in the world now.
Okay. Yeah, we get it. Well, thanks for having us through this. I was severe to us, but quite as bad for you as yours. My name is Bill Crawford. This is my wife, Donna Crawford. We live in Wild Dunes. And I guess I made the assumption that you guys already knew our story, but I'll just tell it real quick and then take my few minutes of some other things we want to talk to you about. Simple deal in Wild Dunes, walking our dog. We've been there 13, 14 years. I'm walking the dog in the morning, had a cup of coffee, just the usual leisurely walk. And our dog's about 20 pounds. And from our neighbor's garage, come out 2 dogs storming out. Their leashes were on them, but nobody was attending to them, although the owner did follow them out. Basically, the 2 dogs, 55 to 65 pound dogs, and we knew they were that size because we were provided rabies reports, and I think they were mixed labs. So the dogs come storming out. I quickly realized that the situation was not good. One of the dogs latched on immediately to the back of our dog. I of course, got rid of the cup of coffee, and the next thing I know, I'm down on the street wrestling with the dog, trying to get him off our dog. The other dog, the second dog, which came out, I'm not sure what it was doing. I ended up getting a pretty severe bite, and our dog had bites all over him. But my main objective was to get the dog off the back of my dog's rear end, and it was like I described to many folks like a gator latched on. I kicked, I screamed, I punched. I knew I was fighting for the dog's life. As a matter of fact, the vet told my wife, who's like your size, if it was her who normally walks the dog, our dog would probably be dead. So long story short, the owners, I guess, screaming and yelling, trying to get the 2 dogs off us. What seemed like 5 minutes probably was 30 seconds. He gets them off, gets them in the house, and I kind of crawl over the side, and I'm like just spent and still hold my dog the whole time. My wife took the dog to the vet, emergency vet, 20 to 30 stitches. I went to the ER. They didn't stitch my dog bite. They don't stitch dog bites apparently typically because they want them to heal
It's a puncture.
cleanly. So anyway, that was our incident, if you will. The reason we're here today is to report that story to you and make you folks aware of it, but to tell you, frankly, we no longer feel safe in our neighborhood like we always have, to either walk on the street. Donna likes to work in the yard. The house is directly there. Animal control got involved with the rabies report and the quarantining of their dogs. They did not have the rabies. Apparently, they had a minor fine for having their dogs at large. I don't know if he went to court, paid the fine, what happened, but basically he told animal control that they were going to put a electronic fence in the backyard, which I might add is right on the golf course, on Wild Dunes golf course. In our mind, there's no way an electronic fence is the answer. So that's kind of where we at. We got a big apology letter. He's paid the bills very quickly
For the dog.
and we don't really know what Medicare covered for me. But anyway, so that's where we're at. So because of all this, those dogs are still there. We found very quickly that it's not easy to get someone to put away their dogs. And I'm a dog lover. I don't want that. I want the dogs relocated. They're part-time residents, I might add, and only have been here 6 months. So with all this, we did a little homework and looked at the laws in South Carolina, and you all may be very familiar, but there's 3 or 4 of them I just want to point out to you. And just for reference, it's the South Carolina Code of Laws, Title 47, Animals, Livestock, and Poultry, Dog and Domestic Pets, Article 13, Regulation of Dangerous Animals. So a dangerous animal in the laws that we read were described as, it's dangerous if it makes an unprovoked attack on a human or an animal. That clearly happened. And then it goes on to state that a dangerous animal must be confined securely indoors or confined in a securely enclosed fence or securely enclosed or locked pen or a run area on the owner's premises. Must be clearly marked as containing a dangerous animal and must be designated to prevent entry of general public, including children, to prevent escape or release. Oh, am I doing that? Sorry.
I'm just gonna stand next to you and hold the mic up.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, boy, I hope you heard all that so far.
We did.
Okay. So Okay, so yeah, I lost my train of thought here. So the pen clearly it needs to be something enclosed and safe so people can't get in and the dogs can't get out. Clearly, an electronic fence does not meet that. So yeah, in this case, he's proposing electronic fence. I don't know if it's done or not. We have not, he said he wasn't going to have the dogs out front ever again on the street, and it's been 3 to 4 weeks now. We have not seen the dogs. A couple more points, penalties and then registration. We read that based on what happened, they're guilty of a misdemeanor and a fine. Now, for an unprovoked attack on a human or an animal, we're only aware of them being charged with a minor fine, again, for dogs at large from animal control. As far as registration, they must register with a local law enforcement authority. It must be accompanied by liability insurance or a surety bond of at least $50K, ensuring securing the owner for personal injuries inflicted by the dangerous animal. So those are the 4 pieces of these pages and pages of dog laws that we found that we want you to make aware of. So we're concerned and don't feel that these are all being enforced or if everybody's even aware of them. We're here asking that the mayor meet maybe with the chief of police to discuss and to make sure that these are being enforced. And if they're not enforced, why aren't we enforcing those laws? Do we need additional laws and regulations to protect the residents? So in summary, that's kind of our story. We wanted to make you all aware of what happened. We don't feel safe in our neighborhood. I'm carrying pepper spray in my pocket now. Imagine if it was kids, a stroller, my wife with the dog. And last thing I'll point out is that we were having some work done in our yard the other day and the dogs are in the front door barking at me in the street. Their front door is clear window. It's not a closed door. So we feel like we have a situation that isn't safe for us. We want to make you aware of it. And we appreciate anything that can be helped to improve the situation.
Thank you very much. Rebecca, Donna, Bill, we don't interact during citizens' comments, but you've been heard by all of council and you've been heard by our public safety on council. And I thank you all for coming and relaying your stories to us. So thank you very much. We have nobody else for citizens' comments. If there are any written citizens' comments, you can go online and read those. And now we'll move on to our consent agenda. We have several items. Approval of previous meetings minutes, regular meeting, April 27th, 2021, special meeting, May 21st. B, consideration of proposal to Salmons Dredging for removal and disposal of a piling laying on the seafloor adjacent to Dock C in amount of $17,230. C, consideration of recommendation from the Public Safety Committee of the purchase of a 2021 Ford Ranger in amount not to exceed $35,000. And D, consideration of recommendation from the Public Works Committee of an award contract for the amount of $18,850 for a True Lock Construction Incorporated to install drainage infrastructure and grading to address drainage issue at the intersection of 34th and Hartnett Boulevard. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion, we move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Councilmember Pounds.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Bell.
Aye.
Councilmember Buchanan.
Aye.
Councilmember Ward.
Aye.
Councilmember Moy.
Aye.
Councilmember Streetman.
Aye.
Councilmember Popson.
Aye.
Mayor Carroll.
Aye.
All in favor?
Thank you very much. Moving on, reports from standing committees, Ways and Means. Mr. Pounds.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll do a quick financial review, Ron, if you have that sheet, you want to go ahead and put it up. We've got one item that was a holdover from our meeting last week to approve, and then I'll run through the minutes of our discussions of last week. So this is a financial report through April 30th. You can see total revenues are just under 17 million against a budget of 18.2. We're forecasting that we will come with revenues of about 20.7 million, which is $2.5 million over our budget, which again, I don't think any of us would have thought that or told that when we started the year. So really wound up being a really good year financially. Expenditures are about 15.4 million against a budget of 24.5 million. We're projecting those to be about just under 20 million for the year. We're moving some expenses, as you know, to fiscal 22 just for projects that did not get completed, part of phase 3 drainage and the replacement of a fire engine for 300,000. You can see just below the general fund revenues, 9.8. We'll exceed, our revenues will exceed expenditures in the general fund by just under $1 million, rough numbers. Our forecast right now assumes we'll transfer that to the capital projects fund, but that'll be a final decision by city council once we have the year-end audit to be completed. City has 25.7 million in cash deposits, about 5.9 are unspent bond proceeds, 8.3 is restricted tourism related to expenditures or beach preservation. So that leaves us about 11.5 million in unrestricted funds. So in really good shape as we're finishing up the year. Questions on financial results? One item that we almost had everything ready for last week at Ways and Means, but are ready to discuss tonight is consideration of proposal for marina parking lot improvements and approval of an amount not to exceed 50,000 for improvements per marina restaurant lease. So we can have a motion and a second. We'll get to some discussion.
We are motion.
So moved.
Second. Second.
Thank you. So in your packet, you had bids, or the highlights of all the bids ranging from 83,000 to 169,000. You can see each of the bidder companies there. Desiree or Douglas, do y'all want
I
to give
can,
us background?
yes, I'm glad to provide a little bit of background. So as you all know, part of the agreement that the city entered into with the restaurant lease, it included making improvements to a parking lot up to an amount of not to exceed $50,000. So we went through the process, issued an RFP and received the bids that Councilmember Pounds referenced. Those bids exceeded the budget amount by about over $35,000. So in accordance with the procurement code, we went back and negotiated directly with the low bid to try to identify any changes in the specifications or the scope that would allow us to change that bid amount to a lower amount, closer to what we had. So Douglas worked with the low bidder and also the marina restaurant tenants on an alternative solution. The original bid package requested crushed granite. Based on the feedback and the conversations with the contractor, they suggested a different material, which would be recycled asphalt. It's crushed and used similarly. It's lower maintenance, lower cost, and we were able to negotiate a different bid for $59,900. It is higher than the not to exceed $50,000 amount that the city agreed to by that lease. However, I think that I would be supportive. It would encourage city council to consider approving an amount not to exceed $59,900 and covering the total cost of the improvements of that lot. Costs are going up. As you all know, the restaurant tenants, the cost for the renovation of the restaurant have exceeded what they originally planned for just because of where we are today. So I think that would be, if it's agreeable to the city council to approve or make an amendment to approve that amount. And it would include and cover the improvements to that parking lot.
Desiree, can we do a friendly amendment just to take the amount to 60,000 as opposed to 50?
All good, Nicole?
Just doing that as a friendly.
A friendly amendment to change it to 60,000. If Ryan and Randy are good with that. Sure.
So we are committed to making those improvements prior to the restaurant opening. So we'll be coordinating that with the restaurant tenants and also with the rest of the marina operations. As you all know, we're using that parking lot as the laydown area for the dock rehabilitation project. We don't think that it'll disrupt, even if we do the renovations, improvements to this parking lot and we continue to use it. As you all know, the project schedule for the dock project has extended somewhat through Labor Day. We don't believe that there's going to be any impact to the material and to the improvement. So would be good to go on that end.
Okay, Nicole?
Just a quick question, because we're dealing with increasing materials costs. I'm seeing some bids where the pricing is expiring at 30 days. Do we know the time frame for when this bid expires? So we're not back here again?
We've asked that question and we don't expect, there's still a little bit of a question as to when we can get in there between the dock contractor not needing a lot. But this is material he has stockpiled. It's basically salvage material. So it's not something that he has to go to market to buy. So he indicated that he would not foresee there to be a change in pricing on this material. But I guess having said that, if things really go sideways with the dock and it ends up pushing way out, we'd have to revisit that. But we don't expect that to be a pressure.
Yeah.
Just, yeah, please. I think to John's point, we're $100 over the current bid price now at 60,000 instead of, or $1,000, I'm sorry, 59.9. Would we not be smart to give some latitude here with the variance in dates to the point that our administrator made earlier? We've watched and we had this discussion regarding the docks. What would the dock project look like today had we not started it? And it was 30 to 40% higher. I don't know about other council members. I'd be comfortable in raising that amount, giving the latitude to the city to work with the contractors so that we don't have to come back here again if others are of like mind.
I'd like to stick where we're at personally, just have a ceiling.
I mean, I think.
Just do one at a time, sorry.
I-
Rusty?
Yeah, I just want to ask a question of Desiree. Desiree, I know you and I had some discussion about the restaurant tenants going and checking out this asphalt, the recycled asphalt. Did they have a chance to do that?
They
And
did.
they like what they saw?
They did. They went up to a location in North Charleston that's using this material. And they came back to us and said that they're willing to move forward with this proposed material and proposed quote.
Okay, thank you.
I will. I mean, we've used recycled asphalt in our businesses and projects, and it works out well. Although it's something that has to be redone over time. But the thing is, I'd like to keep that number where it is. I think we raised that price. I think kind of shows our cards as like, you know what? They're going to raise the price. We'll go ahead and raise ours. So it's, I think we need to leave it where it's at and we'll step out with it.
Mayor, and I would agree with Ryan's comment and to Douglas's point. I mean, this is a salvage material, so it's not out on the open market like we're talking about lumber and other costs that are going on. So I would support keeping us at 60.
And in terms of schedule right now, y'all recall the presentation from Kirby. There's after the new docks from dock area C, which are the ones that are being put together now on site. Once that's completed, there will be about a 3-week period of utility work that we're not going to have as many contractors in that area. So there might be an opportunity there to use those 3 weeks when they're not going to be working on the docks. They're going to be working on the utilities for the docks, to use that opportunity to get this work done at that time. We certainly want to do it as quickly as possible. And again, we don't anticipate the costs going up dramatically. If they do, we can go back and reassess. But I think at that point, the marina tenant would be responsible for any overage at that point.
Anyone else? Hearing none? Go.
Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Councilmember Moy,
Aye.
Councilmember Streetman,
Aye.
Councilmember Popson,
Aye.
Councilmember Buchanan.
Aye.
Councilmember Bell.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember Pounds,
Aye,
Mayor Carroll,
Aye.
all in favor?
Thank you very much.
good conversation. Thank you. Thank you, Desiree and Douglas, for facing that good for us. So Ways and Means had its regular meeting, 6 p.m. Tuesday, May 18th, just last week. All members were present. We had a much deeper dive financial review from our treasurer, Debbie, last week, and that details in the Ways and Means packet from last week if you haven't seen it. We also ran through a legal expense summary on projects that we've had year to date, so to speak, and that's also in the Ways and Means package from last week, but just for anyone that doesn't remember or maybe listening. We spent $252,000 roughly on legal expenses year to date. About 65,000 are one-time expenses like our general obligation bonds, our lease agreement with the new restaurant, and some other pieces. Our big items are tidal wave at 47,500, city prosecutor 57,000. Just general miscellaneous legal expenses is 20,000. So we'll keep this updated and in front of us as we move forward, since this has become a much bigger ticket item this year than we've had in prior years. We'll just keep it updated as we walk forward. We had discussion of the fiscal 22 budget draft. We talked about that already through the public hearing, and we'll have a second reading and hopefully pass that tonight. We had a good update from Kirby and Jack Harrelson of Salmon's Dredging on the Marina Rehabilitation Project. There were some slides. Again, if residents haven't seen that, I would go back to the Ways and Means Committee last week and see those. We had a discussion and consideration of paid parking in 2022. A lot of conversation, a motion made to look at instruct administration to work proactively with SCDOT to advance the city's overall parking plan, inclusive of potential paid parking. And this matter is remanded back to the Public Safety Committee for further discussion and action. Number of items from the consent conversation. And then our next meeting is May 18th at 6 p.m. We went into executive session. Say it again. It does say May 18th. So it's June, something like that. I'll look it up before we finish here. We had a executive session that evening to discuss personnel matters related to the city administrator. There was a motion and a unanimous approval to provide a compensation increase above and beyond the budgeted approval amount in the amount of 6% to the city administrator, retroactive. Should have said to 1/1 of 21. Our minutes say to the last increase, but it's to 1/1 of 21, just like all the rest of the raises are done for the city employees. And Mayor, that is it. Let me get back to the next meeting real quick, sorry.
Councilmember Ward.
Yes, you and me, general revenue, line item, other licenses. It's 192,000. The budget was 1,281,000. Last year, actual was 199. So please explain to me that that difference.
I would have been happy to last week when I had my budget with me, but I don't have it with me
I
tonight.
see somebody who may have one.
Debbie, do you know?
So other licenses include, like broker license fees and insurance license fees that come in big chunks at the end of the fiscal year. So the year-to-date number might seem low compared to budget, but there's no reason to believe it won't achieve budget right now.
Even though last year's budget was comparable to where we are actual right now? Last year's budget was 199
Year to date.
year to date.
So last year's year-to-date was 199. This year's year-to-date is also about that same amount.
192.
So the SCE&G franchise fee will be in there. All those things come in either right at June 30
Got it.
or in July or August.
Very good. Okay. Also, what's your projection on a realistic projection on parking revenues with 2 months left?
I know that we won't, we'll be under budget because the budget included paid parking on full, what we call
Right.
partial year of that. So we won't make budget, but I think the forecast is achievable. I believe it's like 225,000.
The 2 months are two of our most active months as far as revenue. So I was just wondering what you thought.
I think we'll make it.
It'll bust $1 million anyway, probably. Thank you.
Any other questions?
And Mayor, our next meeting will be June 15th. 16th.
Okay. Any questions for our chair? Okay, moving on. Public safety.
Public Safety Committee meeting was held at 3 p.m. Thursday, May 6th. All members were present, Bell, Pounds, and Ward. We had no citizens' comments. We had an update on angled parking on the non-ocean side of Palm Boulevard between 22nd and 40th Avenue. At that time, I'm not going to delve into a lot of detail here. I think everybody's well-versed in angled parking at this point, but SEDO did meet with the residents regarding moving mailboxes and tried to work constructively to make sure it was as smooth as possible. It was noted by Administrator Fregoso that there's increased litter in the areas. I would just make the comment to everybody who appreciate visitors picking up and leaving it as they found it. And we've had Public Works engaged more actively to try to keep up after the litter problems. Item B, we had a discussion of golf cart and low-speed vehicle regulations and enforcement. Chief Cornett has had the police department proactively enforcing the laws around golf carts and low-speed vehicles. And this includes ensuring that they are insured and that they have registrations. And also, I had made a recommendation that the livability officer work with the rental agencies to understand the rules so that golf carts that are left with the rental properties understand that the law does apply and that they're expected to be following that law. We had a discussion of coyote management, and the chief has informed that the department will do a better job. We have had some correspondence from those folks that expressed concerns since then, that they were very happy with the conversations with the chief and that it was being addressed again, as we have seen a rise in coyotes. And we did have some discussion on putting a placeholder in the budget. We had eliminated coyote trapping because it was pretty ineffective over the course of time that we did it. I'm not sure where we are in putting a placeholder if it's necessary. It really wasn't a high ticket item, but I think having the chief engaged in more active discussion with coyote is where we're at this point. We had a discussion of beach shuttle. I'm reading verbatim, it says subtle, so I want to make sure I did not read that. Beach shuttle between IOP and Mount Pleasant, and consideration of requesting CARTA that the service be free. That discussion with public safety was really around a proposal that was a fee-based proposal, and it was the opinion of the committee that those fees, when you look at a family, frankly, would render that shuttle service ineffective. Administrator Fregoso was directed to work with the surrounding communities to come up with a plan that would be more effective, that we actually thought people might have some rider participation on that. Desiree, if you want to comment.
Sure.
That's yours.
Yes, Ron, on behalf of the city, worked with CARTA on trying to get some participation from our neighboring communities to try to make the beach shuttle free, because there's a recognition that right now there's really no incentive, because we do not have paid parking on Palm. Back when we started this conversation with CARTA as a result of council voting, not voting to approve the CARTA shuttle, the CARTA budget, the plan was that this year the city would pursue a paid parking program, and it felt like it would be an incentive for people if they have to pay on park. Since that didn't happen, again, we went back and tried to work with other communities. The town of Mount Pleasant pledged $8,000 towards the total cost of the shuttle. The user fee is estimated to be about $16,000 for the whole summer. That assumes full ridership, which we know it's very unlikely that will be achieved. So it's going to be a cost share between the city. I made the call to pledge the remaining $8,000. I think that this is a great opportunity for the city to partner with our neighbors, show that there is a willingness from this community at making and embracing alternative modes of transportation that hopefully will handle and deal with the increased congestion and traffic that we have seen on the island. We encourage and invite other communities for following years to participate in the same capacity that we are in the first year as Isle of Palms. And I think that, communities may be willing to do that in the future. They certainly should, because the shuttle will be servicing those communities directly. For us, I think the benefit would be potentially reducing traffic congestion coming onto the island, parking congestion, people driving through neighborhoods looking for parking. We're not naive. We recognize that this requires a change in sort of a cultural change from users, but we're certainly willing and supportive of innovative solutions that may address that. So this year, thanks to the contributions from the city of Isle Palms and Mount Pleasant, the shuttle will be free for users. And hopefully, again, others contribute so that that could continue to be in place for many years to come.
Thank you. Yes, Ron.
If I could comment on that real quick. And I like the idea of having a shuttle service, but one of the problems that we have with the shuttle service, and we're still gonna have folks, the shuttle's still gonna sit in traffic. And if we can work with DOT to try to find a way to open up a center lane where we can have a shuttle drive up the center lane, unimpeded, I mean, that'd be great. So maybe we can reach out to DOT to try to reorganize the connector to where we can have a shuttle lane up the middle.
Yeah,
Or get 4-foot wide shuttle.
Yeah, I was gonna suggest a 4-foot wide shuttle. but
I
thank you,
agree.
Mayor.
I think that's
It just creates an incentive. I mean, it's difficult to get on, even if it's free, you're still sitting in traffic. But if there's an incentive that gets you across back and forth, I think more people would utilize that service.
Yeah, I think it was a missed opportunity, how quickly DOT mobilized to make adjustments to the IOP connector. I think all we requested at that point was a little bit more discussion because all of these things were happening at the same time. And there was no opportunity to consider that, but it would have been ideal to have a reversible lane that could be used by the shuttle and emergency vehicles. But I'm encouraged to hear, Secretary Hall's commitment to having a study and looking at the modifications to the connector, I guess, from a grander level and evaluating alternatives that may meet that.
Thank you.
I think the study begins this weekend.
Can I?
Yes, Susan.
Thank you. I just want to thank you for following through with that. I did actually request that we look at how we could make that free at our, I think, last meeting, one of our last meetings last month. And I feel strongly that we need to give it the best shot possible. And if it wasn't going to be free, I think it was going to be a struggle. And for our residents, one of the biggest concerns around the beach traffic is car traffic. And so if we can provide access while alleviating that traffic, I think that's a win for everybody.
We'll certainly be monitoring the first year very closely and making adjustments that's necessary. We, just like with every initiative, every project, encourage public comment, public participation, and providing feedback. I'm sure that the city will have a after action conversation with CARTA, including our police department and other stakeholders, and make adjustments as necessary based on the performance of this first summer.
Okay, item B, we actually covered in the consent agenda, which was the purchase of the 2021 Ranger for the fire inspector. Item C was a request from the beach share company. That request has been withdrawn, so we don't
Correct.
need to have a discussion on that. Item D was consideration of law enforcement assistance and support agreement with Charleston County Sheriff's Office. And the Chief Cornett reported that there will be a marine aid agreement coming before the committee in the future, allowing the police department to house and use one of the sheriff's department boats as part of the Metro Marine for the Charleston area. I actually think this one warrants, because the chief is always disappointed if he doesn't have an opportunity to come forward with a microphone and explain to the public what we're talking about. So please. You thought you were going to get away with just sitting in the back of the room. I think there's a great opportunity, by the way.
Yeah, I think it's a great opportunity. And it's a great way to show the partnership and collaboration that we have with the sheriff's office. The agreement for tonight is a standard agreement, but in the future, we've been in talks with Sheriff Graziano right after she won the election and before she took office. We had conversations about how we could partner together on different things. And one of those were to work together on a Metro Marine unit. And she took it a step further than just partnering by saying, I'm going to mark a boat up and I'm going to give you a boat that belongs to the sheriff's office, but you house it, you use it, you patrol, you help us to respond to calls for service in this area. And it meets a need that we have. And it also helps to meet a need that they have so that we have a faster response time and a unit in the water in this area should there be something that needs a response. So this is a true partnership, and we're working on the fine details of the agreement now of who pays for maintenance and how's insurance covered and those types of things now. And once that's finalized, we'll bring it back in front of Public Safety Committee so that it'll come back in front of council. But it is a true testament to the partnership that we have with the sheriff's office.
Thank you, Chief. Other subject. I had all the fun ones tonight. Discussion of the city's position on State Bill S40, given that.
You
I'm
may
sorry.
want to take out, wait, so we have an action
Oh, do
item
we
on the
want to
agenda.
take-
You
yeah,
may
we
want
do.
to,
Yeah, so we do need to take an action on the approval of the enforcement assistance and support agreement with Charleston County Sheriff's Office.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Any discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Popson,
Aye.
Councilmember Streetman,
Aye.
Councilmember Moy,
Aye.
Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Councilmember Keenan,
Aye.
Councilmember Bell,
Aye.
Councilmember Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember Pounds,
Aye.
Mayor Carroll,
Aye.
all in favor?
So the next fun subject, discussion of the city's position on State Bill S40. I don't think we need to go into detail. We had a special council meeting last week on that. 7 council members present, 2 not present. But Desiree, correct me, I believe all council members signed the letter.
correct.
Yeah, signed the letter that went to the governor's office. And I think our position on S40 is well known. Moving on to discussion of preparations for Memorial Day weekend. Chief Cornett reported that the command staff is currently working on a plan for Memorial Day and securing additional staff from outside agencies. I think the net of that conversation is we expect a very, very busy Memorial Day weekend. And hopefully we are as prepared as possible and have our trust in Chief Cornett. Item G, discussion of a noise ordinance as it relates to amplified music at different times of the day. This was actually because of requests from Front Beach as it related to particular zoning there and the way that we treat noise ordinances across the community, and recognizing that Front Beach is more of a commercial district, and therefore those times that we had for the noise ordinance might need to be looked at. And I'll, Desiree, do we need further?
No, we'll be presenting some recommendations to the committee and working through that, the regular committee process. I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of discussion. Certainly noise ordinance is something that the city has dealt with for many, many years, and any adjustments I expect will have a lot of citizen participation and a lot of discussion.
That's fair. Thank you. We had highlights from the fire department and from the police department. Deputy Chief Smith reported a significant increase, 120% of calls received in April. The trending data regarding response time, I had specifically asked, and I think we're all of concern, do we have an impact from the restriping on the connector? So our response times, and I would encourage anyone that hasn't looked at in the public, the packets that are now part of public safety, they're excellent. It's graphical, it's easily understood data. It does tell you what our response times, both from the police and fire, and how we're doing. I mean, an issue, if we have an ambulance on the island and we look at our fire department response times, they're outstanding. If we have to get an ambulance from off island through that 4-foot lane, are we having an impact? So the chief has committed, or deputy chief committed, to start looking with Charleston County at the overall impact, so that we're not just assessing our time from station 1 or station 2, but we're really understanding as a community what these changes have had in terms of impact and the potential, frankly, for loss of life. In the police department, probably should recognize again that the department was awarded 2020 DUI Agency of the Year for an agency size of 11 to 25 officers. The department had effected 71 DUI arrests in 2020, conducted social media and educational awareness campaigns regarding DUI. Of concern, we had 8 drug-related arrests in April, 6 DUIs, bringing the total to 21 for this year, and 833 parking citations, and 12 collisions for the month. And that was the conclusion of the Public Safety Committee meeting. Next meeting will be Thursday, June 10th at 2021. At 3 o'clock during 2021.
Do we have any questions for public safety? I have
Mayor,
one question.
Yes, Chief.
Are we fully staffed with our BSOs?
I think according to the chief, we are close to fully staffed.
yeah, we have 7 and
7
we're
versus
very,
a budget of 10.
2 conditional offers given today, so.
Perfect.
so we're
way better than last year.
Well, I feel, if I may, I feel like we're always about 3 short.
Well,
Every
I will
year.
say, one summer, a couple years ago, has been the only summer that we were able to hire 10. But this year, we're getting really close.
I'm crossing my fingers, but I feel like we need to pay the BSOs more.
Well,
I have something that I do want to share with you all, just as commendation, if you will. The Mount Pleasant Chamber of Commerce has awarded one of our very own, Sergeant Matt Soren, with the First Responder of the Month. We participated in a ceremony last week, and it was really, really humbling to see one of our own being recognized and celebrated and honored, and just want to share that with you all and the public.
Absolutely. Congratulations. Just one quick concluding comment on BSOs. Let's be realistic. Several years ago, we weren't working real hard to fully staff the BSOs. And we did have a challenging last year on BSOs and Chief, feel free to comment, the whole perception of law enforcement combined with the difficulties of COVID and putting those people at risk, frankly, Susan, for a low dollar hourly wage. Myself has always been a proponent of hire as many as we need. They are self-funding and of huge value to the community. And I would encourage, to Susan's point, that we get staffed up and stay staffed up. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, great report. Thank you very much. Moving on, Public Works.
Public Works met at 4:30 PM Wednesday, May 5th. At City Hall, we had a call to order, no citizen comments, department reports. Director Pitts reported the garbage collection totals are back to normal while yard debris remains elevated. Miscellaneous garbage is still higher than normal. Landscape contractor Pleasant Places has been cutting the area along Palm Boulevard with the new parking bumpers. SCDOT has been on the island to repair the sinkhole on 41st Avenue, which reappeared after they left. So they will be back to correct the issue. Under old business, update on phase 3 drainage project, small internal projects and waterway boulevard path elevation. Director Kerr said nothing further had been done with regards to the waterway boulevard path elevation project. The lighting of the pathway will be considered as planning for the project moves forward. The stabilization work on Sparrow Lane is nearly complete. Update on island-wide drainage master plan RFP. 5 or 6 firms are at the pre-bid meeting. The bids are expected in June. Will be reviewed by the Planning Commission before coming to Public Works. Discussion of the creation of Environmental Advisory Committee. Councilmember Smith read the mission of the proposed Environmental Advisory Committee, and she envisions a 7-member committee meeting 6 times a year, serving 3 staggered terms. That motion was passed unanimously. And let's see, more stuff. New business discussion and consideration of RFP proposals for the installation of drainage infrastructure and grading to address the drainage issues at 30 intersection of 34th and Hardin Boulevard. Staff would like to recommend True Luck Construction for the project with the funding come from Public Works Drainage Contingency Fund. Motion passed unanimously. Discussion of potential solutions to drainage ditch erosion issues. I'm not going to discuss this one. I had twisted Director Kerr's arm to come up and speak about this topic. Do you remember that?
Yes. Can we do that now?
Is your arm still sore?
Thank you. We did talk in the Public Works meeting about a process that we deal with whereby we have EDs come through, they take away vegetation and silt that gets into the ditch. Obviously, when the water starts running back through those lowered channels, it has the effect of bringing the silt back down into that ditch. So it's kind of a never ending process that we're faced with.
It also causes residents to have the issue of feeling like their yard is slowly running out to the intercoastal waterway. And so we are kind of in a situation of dealing with this on a case-by-case basis, and we always have done that. We don't really have a set process to answer those inquiries when it's happening. So Robert and Donnie and myself are trying to come up with basically a policy and a process by which a resident could come to us. We would have a set of standards and a process that they could go by that would allow them to, we think the solution would be to put riprap on the side of those ditches so that would hold that and stabilize that ditch sidewall going forward. It would benefit them. It would stop their yard from going into the ditch, and it would benefit us in that we would have ultimately have less silt in those ditches to clean out. We've also talked a little bit about, when an owner is building new construction, they have equipment there next to the sides of these ditches. They've disturbed that soil. They come back and they stabilize the site. And we think that it might be wise at that time to get them to really reinforce the edge of that ditch. So that's what we're working on. We've involved a little bit through kind of volunteer work with Thomas and Hutton, some standards, some engineering standards, which they've provided for us. They have these standards for projects, and they've actually have a similar standard that they're applying to the work that they're doing currently for us. So we're hoping to get a more complete package that has standards and really the process of kind of going back and forth and delineating where the side of that ditch should be, having them reinforce it, and then we would inspect it. And then we think it would be a real win-win for everybody.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Discussion of changes to backyard service in Wild Dunes. Director Pitt said there will be less backyard service in the future as the island population continues to increase. The efficiency of the garbage collection suffers to the labor-intensive nature of backyard service. 95% of backyard service is in Wild Dunes. And the next meeting of the Public Works Committee will be Wednesday, June 2nd at 4:30 p.m. We are adjourned at 5:30. That's my report.
Great report. Do we have any questions for Public Works?
We
I
have
think you got an action item.
Yeah, there's an action item on the agenda, discussion and consideration of the formation of an environmental advisory committee.
Do I hear a motion?
I make that motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that I agree with this recommendation here. We had a lot of discussion about it in Public Works. I think this is just another opportunity for us to not only address environmental concerns going forward, but also to get more citizens engaged in the community. I think every opportunity that we can on this island to have more resident input, and we have a lot of brilliant people on this island who have a lot of good ideas. And I'm firmly behind this particular motion here.
Mr. Mayor. Thank you. And I would also like to commend Councilmember Ward for his suggestion that we include a college student and a high school student. I think that's an excellent way for us to carry this on with the next generation. So thank you, Councilmember Ward.
I have just a question. I know that during the discussion of Public Works, it was discussed that the group would be a total of 7 members. It reads as in 7 members plus 2 for a total of 9. Is the intent that it's a 9-member committee?
I believe we did actually go review the number that would increase it to 9.
Okay.
Quick question. Just, there'll be a lot of people interested in this. Great idea. Selection process. And I mean, can we not overcomplicate the process and get this done fairly quickly?
We would have the same application process as we do for other committees. There's an application and of some vetting from staff first. And I know that the committee has discussed about some types of backgrounds. I will say, usually, we struggle. We tend to struggle to get people committed for a long periods of time, so it may be difficult to get 9 people. If that's the case, I guess the council could reassess and maybe have a smaller group start off at first.
I think that as far as adding the students, we were wanting to see how that went. And so the idea of having 7 non-student adult members, I think we still wanted to stick with. We didn't discuss it at length, but we did agree as the committee that we would go to 9.
When the students, they're going to do 1-year terms.
And the students would be 1-year terms.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none?
Councilmember Buchanan,
Aye.
Councilmember Bell.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember Pounds,
Aye.
Councilmember Hobson,
Aye.
Councilmember Streetman,
Aye.
Councilmember Moy,
Aye.
Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Mayor Carroll,
Recreation.
Aye.
all in favor?
Now recreation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Recreation Committee met at 8 o'clock on Monday, May 3rd. We did not have any citizens' comments. We heard from our Recreation Director, Paige, and a few highlights. We talked about the yard sale and the success of Day in the Park, as well as the summer camp is going to be running a little bit later than usual due to the fact that school is letting out a little bit later. So it will be running from June 21st to August 6th using COVID guidelines and protocols similar to last summer. The sand sculpting contest is coming up June 5th. We're tied to Piccolo Spoleto, and I encourage everybody to get out there and do their best. Let's see, registration forms for that contest can be found on the city's website. There is a new meditation group. I believe that's free. That is started meeting in May, and they're still working on getting a pickleball league together. It looks like there'll be another boating safety class on the horizon in June. We are looking at reviving the Isle of Palms Beach Run on July 31st, and the Half Rubber Tournament will be returning in August. Plus, the Isle of Palms Connector Walk Run will be revived on October 2nd. Let's see, with the beach run, we talked about some COVID-related considerations, but all those activities are mostly outdoors. So I guess the award ceremony at the end may be adjusted somewhat. Otherwise, we talked about open gym basketball has returned, and we're looking at the possibility of hosting yoga classes on the beach. The farmers market is going to be adjusted as it comes back, and I think this will be a good way for us to go with it being on the 3rd Thursday afternoon of the summer months, starting in June and going through September. So it will be a little more spread out over the summer, but it can be something that people can mark on their calendars. And I believe we'll include some food trucks as well as farmer stands and maybe even a little bit of music. So we are planning to meet next on July 12th at 8 a.m. Here ends my report.
Great report. Do we have any questions for recreation? Yes, sir, Mr. Moore.
Just a quick comment, and to commend Chair Smith. I know she worked really hard to get the environmental studies program initiated. I heard from the instructor, who was my former marine biology teacher.
Oh, I forgot. Thank you.
And she said it was a smashing success. And I'm hopeful I can attend the next one on Thursday.
Yes, I can't believe I forgot. Yes, the environmental series that we started this Thursday and continues the next 2 Thursdays with classes on dissection of shrimp and of crab. And then a 4th one will be on focus on shells. But the first one this past week was excellent. And if you didn't go, you missed it. Julie Clift was wonderful and just a fountain of knowledge. It was really lovely.
Very good. Any other questions? Comments? Okay, moving on. Personnel.
All right, that's me. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Personnel Committee met at 9 a.m. on Tuesday, May the 4th. We kicked things off with an introduction of the city's new HR and payroll officer, who comes to us from Vermont and is just fantastic. We're happy to welcome her to the staff family. We got an update on the wage and compensation analysis report, and somehow we keep scheduling our meetings the day before staff gets an update. And so staff was getting an update the day after. And so Desiree, I'm going to pass this to you and any information that you gleaned, please.
Sure. The wage and compensation study has been coming along. It is delayed more than what we wish and would have wanted. We keep adding stuff to their scope. Now they're looking at, you all remember the decisions that were made related to the fire department and adding some, making some changes there to the structure. They have completed the assessment tool for each position. As a result, our new HR, Janice has been meeting with each of the department heads and discussing some of the recommendations that have been made. We're talking about the recommendations regarding title changes, maybe the category between non-exempt and exempt, and making some recommendations about potential restructuring of some positions in the city. They have also completed the market study, so they look at peer communities, just considering budget size, population, tourism focus, just like we are, not only around the state, but in other communities as well. They've been focusing on some communities in Florida. The next step will be evaluating the market study to internal equity components to make sure that they're taking into consideration cost of living, the volume of work, type of work, looking at the JAT, the job assessment tool that each employee has completed. So that's ongoing. We continue to discuss with them some of the recommendations that they're making. There are some that I've asked for them to look at just a little bit closer. We'll just continue, we'll continue to work. This is going to be a long process. I think that I'm glad that City Council embraced putting a placeholder in the budget and certainly not holding the budget to a final report, but it'll give us time to really digest and study and be very particular and strategic on how we make those recommendations moving forward.
Thank you, Desiree. Okay, moving on. We had some new business. We had a vacancy in the Board of Zoning Appeals, BOZA, as one of the members moved off of the island. This is a semi-judicial board, and the vacancy was left by someone who was an attorney. And so the recommendation was that we look for someone with legal expertise or legal background to fill that vacancy. We had 3 applications, one of whom was an attorney. And so the Personnel Committee made the recommendation, and that this will be an action item that I'll make to appoint Ted McKnight to that open vacancy. I think most everyone on this council would recognize the name and certainly the face. He's a highly engaged citizen who's been here for a long time. So those 2 things don't hurt, but the qualifier being with the legal background made it kind of a cinch for the Personnel Committee to recommend him to that position. I guess I'll make that in the form of a motion now.
Second.
Hearing any discussion? Anyone? Hearing none? Nicole?
Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Councilmember Moy,
Aye.
Councilmember Streetman,
Aye.
Councilmember Pound,
Aye.
Councilmember Popson,
Aye.
Councilmember Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember Val,
Aye.
Councilmember Buchanan,
Aye.
Mayor Carroll,
Aye.
all in favor?
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, Councilmember Moy, just for the record, so Ted McKnight is going to be filling an unexpired term by Carolyn Holscher, and that term would expire December 31st, 2022. So he's only going to be filling up until that point.
Thank you for the clarification.
You're welcome.
Keeping me in line. The next item the Personnel Committee discussed was the referendum question on reducing the size of council. In your packet, you'll see some suggested language around those questions. The city administrator directed us into discussion as to really the particular wording, this has to be a two-part question. The first part being, does the voter in question want to reduce the size of council? That's question number one. Question number two is how, because we have staggered elections, we don't have a wholesale 9-person vote every election cycle. If we were to enact this in one election cycle, that would really significantly impact the weighting of our 2 elections. And so we proposed some solutions of ways that we could word it to affect that change should the general populace support the referendum. So that's what you see right after the personnel committee notes, just some particular language. I don't think there's any necessary decisions for us to make, but if there are questions that you want to direct or points that you want to make, I think this would be a good time to direct them to guide Desiree and the rest of staff. Go ahead.
Just a clarification. So, and this is something that I've been able to discuss with the city attorney after the personnel committee. The referendum question has to be one question. The ordinance instructing for the referendum would include the language about how the reduction would occur. But the referendum, the question that would be presented via referendum to the citizens would be a simple question, which is included as a proposed question in your packet. Should the Alapalm City Council consider a reduction in the number of council to a mayor and 6 council members? It needs to be one question. The how-to, it's not included in the referendum, but it's included in the ordinance that then is used to communicate to the community how that would work.
Y'all are lucky Desiree's here.
And forgive me if you all mentioned this, but the way this is worded, at the top of it says on March 23rd, City Council voted to reduce the size of council and present.
To present the question to the community about reducing the
So
size of
wording
council.
This is
Correct. I would have to go back to the minutes and revise, but
I'm just looking at the sheet in our packet.
yeah, the action that was taken was to present a question to the community about reducing the size of council from 8 council members to 6, because the seat of the mayor would remain.
That's what I thought. So I think this
Correct.
just needs to be adjusted in the wording. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. Any other clarifications on that topic? It's a big one.
Yeah, we've included in that sheet just 2 options that have been discussed so far about how that could work. The personnel committee was consistent in that it wanted to see the how to maintain the staggered terms for elections moving forward. So we've just been having internal discussions with the city attorney, getting guidance from the Municipal Association of South Carolina. And those are just 2 options presented to all of you. I will say, as part of the research that we've been doing on this topic, MASC has advised us that there have been 2 communities so far that have considered a similar question, and both have failed. They typically see the opposite. They see people, councils wanting to increase the size. But if we're looking for examples, which is what we were asking them about how the ordinance could be drafted, they did alert us to that.
Great, thank you. Our final discussion was around proposals for the assistant city attorney. We have a vacancy right now for the assistant city attorney, and Desiree was evaluating proposals at that point. She wasn't ready to make a recommendation, and so we don't have any motions to present, but she's got several qualified attorneys that she's vetting, and I think at the next council meeting, we'll be making a recommendation. So ends my report.
Okay, do we have any questions for personnel? Hearing none, moving on, real property.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before we get into the actual coverage of the meeting that we had, we do have one item here that was for discussion and consideration. Excuse me. And that's the noise agreement between Barker 116, that's the restaurant tenants, and the city of Isle of Palms. So had an earlier discussion today with Desiree. And what we want to do is take that back to committee at this point. The tenants wanted a little more time to look at that noise agreement. There was some language that we had in there, excuse me, to tighten that up a little bit in regards to the agreement to make that if there was, noise that was over and above and what it should be and was they would have 30 minutes to turn the noise level down and also have 30 days to submit a written plan to find a solution for any noise that was over and above what it should be. So if, this agreement is attached. So if you have any questions about it, please feel free to ask myself or Desiree about it. But we do want to take that back to committee and talk about that a little further and give the tenants a little more time to consider this noise agreement before we bring it back. Okay, now moving on to the real property committee meeting. We had our meeting at 1:30 p.m. Tuesday, May the 4th. We had all council members on the committee were present. We had our staff there, administrative staff as well. We had no citizens comments, but we did have some comments that Desiree made on behalf of the Marker 116 group. And basically, she just read an update on the status of the Marina restaurant. And I think if any of us have been down there, we've seen a lot of work going on since then. But, the interior demolition had been completed. That was allowing the architects and the structural engineers to visually inspect the framing. Pretty much everything's been stripped out of there. They removed the ductwork, all the building inspections, all the approvals have been done. So they're moving ahead with the work down there now, and it's looking like some real progress being made. The outside deck area had to be scaled back due to some encroachment in the critical area. And we also discussed briefly some options about what we could do later on, once they get the outdoor area open, as to whether there could be a possibility of food trucks, but that would have to be something that our code right now does not allow for that option, so it would need to have further review by city council. So more later on that. Under old business, we had an update on the Marina Dock Rehabilitation Project, and for any of you who have been down there the last couple of days, you've seen a lot of work going on as promised and expected. Everything was removed. But demolition began on May the 10th, and then May the 24th, they brought some new docks in there. It's looking great. The work they're getting done down there, and that's underway at this point. And we also talked a little bit about the builder's risk policy. I don't know if we have an update on that or not. That expires June the 1st. Desiree, do you want to address that?
I do not have an update on that. I'm sorry. But I will present some options for real property.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Update on proposed ADA compliant dual purpose beach boardwalk at 42nd Avenue. We did have, looked at that situation and talked a little bit about Mr. Boardwalk being the e-pay source. And we had some discussion around that. Director Kerr also said he reached out to OCRM for permission for the second turnaround spot. Expect that will be granted. And I know that we promised that we would have some further discussion about this item when we addressed it last week in Ways and Means. Is there something here to update on that, Desiree?
We have been having a lot of internal discussions about this material, going back to the manufacturer about warranty information. We have had the opportunity to talk with some other municipalities that have used the same material in the past, and it is just raising a lot of questions for us. We do not yet feel comfortable making a recommendation to City Council with moving forward with this particular material. We do want a little bit more time to make sure that $100,000 investment is made and it accomplishes our goal. We have been in constant communication with a member of our community who is providing some insight regarding the use of wheelchairs and just folks who have a handicap or any disability that would be using it, which we appreciate. It's just raising a lot of questions that I think need to be answered thoroughly before we are at a point that we want to move forward, which we're not there yet.
Okay, thank you for that update. I am aware of the questions that were raised, and they were all good questions from what I could tell, and certainly needed to be addressed. So I think we all want to be prudent and patient with this to make sure we do the right thing in regards to that boardwalk. Item C that we had under old business was updating the proposed public dock and green space at the marina. We really didn't have any further update on that because we're still awaiting the outcome of eviction proceedings of the former tenant, which is a holdover tenant in that area. So I understand we do have some dates coming up that will be addressed within the legal system. So we will know more about that later. Item D, the discussion and consideration of the noise agreement. We just talked about that and holding that off for a little bit. Under new business, we talked about the discussion about the proposals for marina parking lot improvement, and that was discussed earlier in the meeting tonight, so we don't need to deal with that any further at this point. And item B, discussion of changes to the zoning ordinance to permanently allow outdoor dining at restaurants. We had discussion about that. Under miscellaneous business, our next meeting will be Monday, April the 5th at 1:30 p.m. And that's my report, Mr. Mayor.
Great report. Do we have any questions or comments?
Not meeting in April.
Oh, oh, there's a typo. Yeah. Yeah.
Nice move, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. Well, yeah. What is that? Does anyone know? June 7th?
June 7th.
All right. June the 7th. Good catch. Good catch there, Councilman Ward. Thank you very much.
I do want to update you all on something related to the Marina Restaurant. As you all know, a couple of months ago, City Council voted to engage Insight Group as our owner's representative. We used them. They did the same type of work for us when we were renovating the public safety building. Worked really well. So we've engaged them and we're having our first kickoff meeting with the restaurant tenants, our contractor, Insight Group, Douglas and I, later this week.
Good. Any other comments? Hearing none, moving on. Reports of city officers, boards, commissions. Board of Zoning Appeals, the minutes are attached. Planning Commission, the minutes are attached. Accommodations Tax Advisory Committee says no meeting. But just so everybody knows, there was a meeting and we didn't have a quorum. So when we look at personnel, residents, citizens getting involved, just make sure that they can attend these meetings because we go to a lot of work to put these things together. And it's tough. So make sure that when we put these new ones together, we always get people who want to be involved. Okay, moving on. Reports from special or joint committees, none. Petitions received, referred, disposed of, none. Bills already in possession, thanks to Desiree. Ordinance 2021-05, an ordinance to raise revenue and adopt a budget for the city of Isle Palm, South Carolina for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021 and ending June 30th, 2022. Do I hear a motion?
So move.
Second?
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none.
Councilmember Popson.
Aye.
Councilmember Streetman.
Aye.
Councilmember Moy.
Aye.
Councilmember Ward.
Aye.
Councilmember Pounds.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Bell.
Aye.
Councilmember Buchanan.
Aye.
Mayor Carroll.
Aye.
All in favor.
Thank you very much. Number 2, ordinance 2021-06, an ordinance amending Title 7 licensing regulations, Chapter 1 business licenses. Douglas, you want to give us just a brief overview of what the state is?
Yes, so this ordinance becomes necessary because of the Business License Standardization Act that the state legislature passed. That act requires that all licenses expire in April of 2022. It takes effect in 2022. That date does not really cause much of a problem with regular business licenses because they're on that schedule already, but does, if you'll recall, our rental licenses are staggered 6 months from that. So to get these, we basically have to get the rental licenses aligned with the other licenses, and that's what this ordinance is specifically geared towards doing. We either had the option of extending the rental license for basically a year and a half, or issuing kind of a short-term license for half of a year. And that's after talking, we've had a number of conversations with the municipal association. They indicate that that's how other communities are handling this kind of date hiccup. So that is what this specific ordinance is doing. It will make the rental licenses that we're just about to start sending out for renewal, they will expire. They'll need to be renewed basically in 6 months from now, or 6 months after they're issued. So because of their shortened period, this ordinance is crafted to have a half rate, because it's basically half a year license. And there will be a subsequent change that addresses all of the other parts of that Standardization Act coming prior to that act becoming effective, which is January 2022. So we have some time. There are a lot of other adjustments that need to be made with the classification of different licenses and things of that nature, but this is kind of the first step in that process.
Any questions for Douglas? I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, go.
Councilmember Buchanan.
Aye.
Councilmember Bell.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Pounds.
Aye.
Councilmember Ward.
Aye.
Councilmember Moy.
Aye.
Councilmember Streetman.
Aye.
Councilmember Popson.
Aye.
Mayor Carroll.
Aye.
All in favor?
Douglas, I almost told you not to sit down again. This next one, I think is gonna have to require a public hearing beforehand. So really no action needs to take place on this tonight. So Douglas, you don't have to get back up. I just wanted to play with you a little bit. We'll come back to this next time. Okay, number 9, introduction of new bills, resolution, and proclamations. Consideration of a resolution to encourage unvaccinated people to use face coverings in public indoor areas within the limits of the city of Isle Palms. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
I'll second it for discussion. Any discussion?
Just as a reminder, when city council voted to extend the emergency ordinance 2021-03, the decision was made to remove the section that required folks to wear face masks inside retail and food service establishments. And city council made a request of staff to develop a resolution about encouraging the use of face masks. That was before the CDC came out with new rulings related the use of face masks by people who are vaccinated. The CDC still recommends the use of face masks in public transportation and in airplanes. But this action was taken before the CDC, but because it was requested at the last city council meeting, we're presenting this for you all to consider and vote on.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, quick point of order. I don't think we voted on ordinance 2021-07.
We're deferring.
We're deferring. I just, okay.
Thank you for keeping
Sorry,
on.
I missed the, sorry.
So back to this motion and a second, and thanks to CDC. We want to withdraw?
Yes.
I withdraw my second.
A quick clarification, the governor has also weighed in on this, has he not?
Well, the state never had a face mask ordinance or a face mask requirement. I know that there's been some discussions related to school districts, but that's different.
Okay, I thought he had said something broader.
Well, yes, he did. He made there was an executive order basically preempting municipalities from enacting face mask ordinances. This would be a resolution encouraging, so this would be okay. Council would be able to do this if you all wish to do so, but it's up to you all.
Okay. Moving on. Miscellaneous business. We've got one person sitting in the audience. all night. Consideration application for commercial surf instruction permission from Kai Dillon. Do I hear a motion?
Motion
make-
to approve.
Second.
Any discussion?
Just a note, as we said previously, with all these surf instruction requests, this does not mean that we're endorsing or partnering with any of these instructors, simply that they are meeting our requirements for giving instruction.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
I just want to say, I don't know of any other person that has taught as many people surfing lessons than Kai.
And I also like to say, Kai, thank you for your patience on how long. I think we're ready for.
You gonna celebrate tonight?
And I'll just one comment on it. It's just the fact that, I mean, because of the limitations on the number of people and the number of hours that you can have, it really restricts the number of people, the teachers and the teaching that you can have out there. So thank you for stepping up, Kai, especially with the history that you've had with the city. So.
And just for the record, I know he's probably aware of it, but this is a pilot program. It expires at the end of this year. The city will have an opportunity to reevaluate moving forward. But they would be authorized to do surfing instruction up until the end of October, I believe.
Mayor, I just have one request since Kai's patiently sat here. Maybe we could informationally share how. I mean, I'm happy that we're finally having this vote, but I do think an opportunity to publicly tell people that it's available, not just surf instruction from Kai Dillon.
Well,
So
we've done that with others already.
Correct.
I mean, this is out there. It's been out there for months.
Yeah, we
I
published-
just
it's been
given the
published.
opportunity since he's here.
Yeah, this would be the third license that city council approves this year.
Okay, Nicole?
Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Councilmember Moy,
Aye.
Councilmember Streetman.
Aye.
Councilmember Popson,
Aye.
Councilmember Buchanan.
Aye.
Councilmember Bell.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember Pounds,
Aye.
Mayor Carroll,
Aye.
all in favor?
Thank you very much. Moving on. Consideration of a city sanctioned event status for Darius Rucker concert to be held at the Windjammer on June 9th, 2021.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay. This is pretty cool because he's doing this for healthcare workers and appreciation. And so we have a motion on the table. Any questions?
Understanding it's free.
Well, if I may, the concert will not be advertised. No tickets are going to be sold. They're limiting it to 1,000 tickets. Most of them are going to go to hospital workers. There are some that are going to be distributed through radio contests. But yes, it's supposed to be a secret, but I told Bobby, I said, I can't do secrets.
But I keep the secret here. You know that.
But they're not advertising it, and again, not selling tickets. They're limiting it at 1,000, like I said, and yes, they're requesting city sanction event status for that. June 9th, 6 and stops at 9:30.
Okay. Any other discussion?
I'll just have a quick comment that I
Yes,
think
ma'am.
this is lovely.
Okay. Nicole?
Councilmember Pounds,
Aye.
Councilmember Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember Bell.
Aye.
Councilmember Buchanan,
Dr. Buchanan says aye.
Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Councilmember Moy,
Aye.
Councilmember Streetman,
Aye.
Councilmember Popson,
Aye.
Mayor Carroll,
Aye.
all in favor.
Thank you very much. And the last one, do I hear a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all for coming tonight.
7:34.